on the point. I was thinking of him this morning and thinking sitting next to him for a couple of years was one of the best things you could have done. What a man. We appreciate his dedication, his service, and his humor. In your name, amen.
Amen. Supervisor O'Brien, what? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In case of fire or other emergency, there's 3 exits in the room. There. In case of such emergency, please proceed to the nearest stairway. Descend the stairway and go out the building and clear the building as far as you can so emergency squads and rescue squads can do their job. If you need assistance, please contact one of us. We're more than glad to help you exit the building. Please silence your cell phones for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, we will now have the roll call, please.
Mr. Hankey.
Here.
Mrs. Fedler.
I'm here.
Mr. Ferguson.
Here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Okay, that's Paul.
Closer.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Mr. Nolan.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Half.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Skelly.
Here.
Mr. Hogan.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Clary. Here. Mr. Griffiths.
Here.
Mr. Rozelle.
Here.
And we have a quorum. The condensed minutes from December 17, 2021 and January 3rd, 2022 meetings are accepted as mailed unless there are any additions or corrections. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes for either one of those dates? Seeing none, those will be accepted. Communications, please.
For communications from Warren County, we are in receipt of their resolution number 620 of 2021 authorizing payments to SUNY Adirondack. That's all I have for communications.
Thank you. And we have a COVID-19 update. Mr. Hardy, are you available?
Morning, everybody. I'll make this relatively brief this morning. Obviously, you know, since our last meeting, the state has begun a transitional period away from contact tracing that the majority of counties have launched and moved into, with the state taking over the majority of the case investigations, which certainly has been a challenge. The way that was being managed prior to that, it was just unmanageable at the county levels, which you've seen across all of the counties, where people were either getting no calls for a considerable amount of time because the cases were just so plentiful, and it became very difficult to conduct contact tracing just based on the pure number of cases. So we have transitioned out of that here in Washington County. Public health is continuing to work with the schools, our school specialists. We still have a number of other initiatives, but this is really going to let us focus more on vaccinations. It's going to open the door for a testing initiative here, in addition to what's being done down at Cambridge, that Cambridge Valley Rescue Squad has been doing for us. We're working on possibly late next week launching a short-term temporary testing initiative up here on more of the central part of the county. So we're hoping to have that finalized so we can announce that on Monday. So that'll be nice to be able to allocate some public health resources more towards vaccination, more towards testing, so we can help finish bringing an end to this pandemic and move us into the next phase of this. We just wanted to go through a couple of quick things. A lot of questions that we're getting right now around the contact tracing, case investigation things. So really, I wanted to bring up the website just so we could show everybody exactly what it is that you're going to encounter. So we're really encouraging everybody to go to that coronavirus information website that we have published at the county. Simply, it's washingtoncountiny.gov/coronavirus. And we put really right on the top. So I've tested positive, or I've been exposed to someone who's tested positive. So effective January 13th, that's when the new State Department of Health guidelines went into effect, and the contact tracing procedures and guidelines came out relative to positive cases and exposures. So obviously it's a one-stop shop right here for us and for anybody in our communities when they're looking for that information. If they make it to our website, it's the first section right here. When they take that, it will transition them right over to the state's website and really will break it down. It will let you know or let a family member know what you should do if you've tested positive, if you've been exposed, and talk more about isolation and quarantine and your responsibilities in that self-reporting and really taking care of yourself and being responsible. It breaks it down by level. So what to do if you test positive, you are exposed, if you're symptomatic, if you're not symptomatic. You know, the standard isolation now is 5 days for the majority of people, with day 0 being the onset of your symptoms or the day you were tested if you don't have any symptoms, all the way up to day 5. As long as your symptoms are resolving and you don't fall into the healthcare category, which is still in a 10-day based on the state's guidance. But any of the normal general population is in that 5 days, as long as your symptoms are resolving and you're fever-free without fever-reducing medication for at least 24 hours. If your symptoms are not resolving or not fever-free on day 5 within 24 hours of medication, your isolation would continue from there. So that explains all of that step by step through that. The other biggest change, obviously, the state has developed priority groups who will be identified by the state case investigators. And those are the folks that will be receiving a call or a text message from the state contact tracing or the state case investigation team. Those priority groups are the 70 and over are the highest, the 65 and over, the school age children, which includes the 18 and younger population. And then everything else is the congregate settings, schools, daycare, those kind of things are all the priority groups that the state has identified, that those are the groups that should be receiving a call from the state case investigators. Our public health team continues to work with the schools as best they can. Obviously, the schools have developed their own policies and the way that they're handling things moving forward. But really the last ticket item that we are receiving tons of questions on is where people get their paperwork. So formerly you'd be issued a quarantine order or you'd be issued an isolation order. Now from the State Department of Health, they have developed this affirmation of isolation, affirmation of quarantine. So it really puts the responsibility back on the person. So just for example, I'll pull up the affirmation of isolation, which is right on that website. This is what you would fill out when you have completed your isolation. And this would be presented to your employer or presented to your school. After your child has completed isolation, you go through and then basically you're attesting to the fact that you completed your 5 days or whatever your dates ended up being based on your symptoms. It talks about your test date. It talks about your date of birth, obviously identifying, and then sworn and subscribed on the bottom by you. And you can see that these are all signed electronically by the Commissioner of the State Department of Health. So obviously we know that there are a lot of challenges around this, and we're doing our best to continue to be a resource for our community and bridge the gap here. So we're encouraging anybody who doesn't understand the process or who is struggling through that to call either the public health office or call a public safety office. We'll be glad to help them through this process as much as we can. You know, we are happy to see us be able to transition on the public health side more into the vaccinations. You know, we wouldn't have been able to do it to this point without the EMS vaccination team. So our nurses becoming more involved in being able to actually vaccinate and not being tied to deaths and case investigations all day. And then we're really excited to be able to offer some additional testing opportunities. The next part that you see is that I've tested positive on an at-home COVID test. We knew when the state announced there was going to be millions of at-home COVID tests released into the population, we had to adjust and we had to be able to account for that. And certainly we have seen a varying number of these at-home positive self-tests come into us. And obviously these are only the ones that we know about. So since that portal went live on January 8th, we've had anywhere from a low number of about 20 come in on a day to our highest number, which was on January 13th of 89. So those are added on top of any of the lab confirmed positives that we know of or people that were tested at an official testing site. So that just gives another opportunity for people to report that. They go into the state case investigation bank, and if they identify as in one of those priority groups, they become one of those folks that will get a call or a text message from the state case investigators. If you're not a priority group, the state is going in and just closing those cases out, and they're moving through the focus on the priority groups there. So we strongly encourage everybody, if you test positive on a home test, please report it. That goes to public health, and then in turn, that goes into the state case investigation system. And then same thing when you're done with your isolation, you know, afterwards, your forms are all available right here on the website. You click on it and it takes you right to that. Another big question that we certainly have had a lot of discussion around is the change in reporting of statistics. One of the issues that we were presented with as the state takes over case investigations is having the ability to have all of that information that we formerly had available to us at the tips of the public health folks' fingertips there is not as readily available to us. The details aren't as readily available. The case investigations have changed a little bit. So some of the questions relative to breakthrough cases and those kind of things are not being asked by the state case investigators as they're into abbreviated case investigations so they can get through all of these cases that are coming in. And yes, certainly we're getting caught up to where we were. You could see the large change when we started to change over to the reporting statistics back on about the 12th or the 13th, where we went from 50 active cases to about 1,100 active cases. So that balance in between pending and hadn't been able to be touched or investigated yet. So as of today, right now, 639 active positive cases. Those are the active positive cases that we know about, either a lab confirmed case, an official testing site case, or the ones that have been reported to us through the at-home test portal that are within their active isolation window currently. Active hospitalized is one thing that is relatively available to public health and easy to get because they do communicate with the hospitals every day and get an update from them. And then obviously any related deaths that are reported to public health as an official COVID related death, that number has grown to 78. So that is where we are as of right now. We still continue to put out the basic details that we do have available. We obviously had to tailor back the statistics we were reporting because we couldn't accurately report them, not having all that information available to us anymore. We certainly don't want to put out numbers that we can't accurately report. So that's what you see, what we're trying to put out as much as we can to keep the public as informed as we can. The last thing I just really wanted to touch on are some vaccination efforts that we have both upcoming and ongoing. So we do have a couple more community clinics, one to finish out January, one to start February. January 27th, the Fort Anne Central School is hosting a clinic there. It is open to everyone eligible. That will be a Pfizer first dose, second dose, and booster, a Moderna first dose, second dose, and booster. You can register by calling public health at 746-2400, or you can walk into that event. That'll be on the 27th, 3:30 to 6:30, right at the cafeteria at the Fort Anne School. February 3rd is going to be a Whitehall clinic, and that is the same thing. We're making all of these clinics are going to be open to everything for everyone that is eligible moving forward into February. So another first dose, second dose, and booster Pfizer and Moderna. As we finish out those weekly booster clinics we have been doing at Burgoyne for the month of January. Right now, those are boosters for age 11 and up for Pfizer and boosters for 18 and up at Moderna. And those are register available online. We're going to transition for the month of February where those will also be open for everything. And we're going to tailor the times a little bit different for that. We're going to stagger those. So I believe we're going to do the first half of February, the first couple of weeks and see where we're at. But we're going to do a 9 to noon and then like a 3 in the afternoon to 6 in the afternoon. So we're going to split that up and bring the nurses into the fold there will give us a little bit more availability to do that and free up the EMS vaccination team to continue focusing on some of our homebound boosters that we want to get back out and finish those up as well. So it's nice to be able to get more towards these proactive measures to be able to help get us to the other side of this. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else. If anybody has any questions, I will do my best to answer those.
Supervisor Haff.
Tim, as always, you do an excellent job. I would like to ease your workload a little bit. I think we need to recognize this is no longer a pandemic, it's an endemic, like the flu, common cold. Your report today was excellent, a lot of new information, but I think maybe we could shed in coming months the statistics that you always give us with all the charts and things like that, because we could go and find that on our own. It says there are 78 deaths in the county. I'm assuming that goes back 3 years. Report from the CDC is that 80% of all the deaths had 4 comorbidities. But I think we need to start recognizing that this is going to be around for the rest of our lives, like the flu, common cold. It's an endemic, no longer pandemic. And so I'd like to ease your workload a little bit by shedding the statistical report that you have. I'm sure nobody will agree with me, but that's my my comments. Next question I have is, I know that there's another tranche of test kits coming out to the community and the towns. Are these the same test kits as before, made in China? Do you know, are they all made in China? I know Warren County gets a different kind of a test kit. I think it's Binax. But I'm wondering, do you know, are all of these test kits made in China, just like the masks that we had that rip your ears off? Are they made in China? Are all the masks made in China? Virus made in China, mask test kits? Do you know?
I know the test kits that we received this shipment, just like the last, are the same ones that Warren County got from the state, are the same iHealth ones that we were talking about the last time. We haven't received any other masks here. Certainly, you know, the last batch that we came did come from, or did say made in China on them. So the test kits are the same for this batch.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Tim? Sue Clary.
Tim, thank you for all that you've done in public health. If Hartford doesn't want their test kits or their masks, Salem will take them. And the other thing is that the phone calls I'm getting are, they're wondering where the map is. And I know it doesn't matter, really, but that's the question I have, is how come we're not doing the Friday map, town per town?
And we did address that when we completely understand. We did address that when we went to the change in reporting statistics, only because it becomes inherently more difficult to do it now that we're managing solely with the state system. That is a manual tally of all of those cases. So someone is sitting there going through all 639, we use that number today, and we do it by actual township. Those are all by mailing address. Which makes it very difficult since we have a number of zip codes that are split across either towns or counties. We have zip codes that are split into, that are actually Fort Edward zip code that are in the town of Moreau and over in Saratoga County, or down in Scotticoke that are actually into Rensselaer County. So, you know, certainly number one, the accuracy, number two, the workload to be able to provide that. And basically, I mean, we're trying to show a picture of, obviously COVID is still here. You can see the case number relative to, and it is in every town. There is no town that is free of a case. I mean, that is something that we had said from early on in the pandemic. Yes, there were weeks here and there where a town didn't have a case when the numbers were really low. But once the numbers started to creep up to anywhere close to where they are, there is no town that doesn't have a case.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Tim? Seeing none, thank you, Tim. We'll move on to committee reports. The audit report.
Here, I'd like to, maybe audit committee, reviewed bills totaling $5,047,674.74. We present those to the board and recommend payment of the terms set forth in the report.
We have a motion to accept the audit report. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Ferguson. I don't believe I missed anyone. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Introduction of local laws. The clerk will read the titles.
Introductory Local Law A of 2022, County of Washington, New York, by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. A local law providing for the salaries of the county administrator, county attorney, commissioner of social services, superintendent of public works, sheriff, county clerk, county treasurer, director of real property tax services, coroners, election commissioners, personnel officer for calendar year 2022. Introductory Local Law B of 2022, County of Washington, New York, introduced by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. A local law amending a portion of Section E of Local Law 5 of 2020, providing for the amount of a reserve in the Washington County Workers' Compensation Self-Insurance Plan.
Thank you, Deb. We have a proclamation. All supervisors got a copy of the proclamation, and it's for Mrs. Jean Whitney, who who celebrates her 100th birthday, and she was a bookkeeper that worked in Washington County Department of Social Services from 1956 until her retirement in 1984. And we certainly want to wish her a happy birthday, and we have a proclamation to that fact. Okay. Supervisor's privilege of the floor. Does anyone have supervisor's privilege of the floor? Okay. And Sandy, do you see anybody online that may be there? Okay. So seeing none, we will move on to the next one, the introduction of the resolutions. And we'll need a motion to set aside the rules for resolutions number 42, 43, and 44.
So moved.
So moved by Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor
Second.
Hankey, Supervisor Wilson. Supervisor by Supervisor Campbell are the seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The clerk will read the results, please.
Resolution number 42 by Supervisor Hall, title appoint members to the counties of Warren and Washington Industrial Development Agency and City Development Corporation. Resolved that the following be and they hereby are appointed as members of the Warren Washington County Industrial Development Agency and serve concurrently on the Civic Development Corporation. David O'Brien, Brian Campbell, Virginia Sullivan, Michael Biddle, Mary King, Daniel Bruno, Craig Leggett, Nicholas Caimano, Michael Grasso, and Michael Wild. And be it further resolved that this resolution is contingent upon a similar resolution by the County of Warren. Resolution number 43 by Supervisor Hall, titled to appoint Robert A. Hankey as Washington County Director to Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation. Resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors hereby appoints Supervisor Robert A. Hankey to fill the Washington County vacancy on the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation Board of Directors to serve at the pleasure of the board. Resolution number 44 by Supervisor Skelly, a resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the state and federal Marshall Program aid eligible costs of a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore CR 61 Shushan over Battenkill, towns of Jackson and Salem. Resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the above subject project, and be it further resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors hereby authorizes the County of Washington to pay in the first instance 100% of the federal and non-federal share of the cost of design and right-of-way incidentals and acquisition and construction inspection work for the project or portions thereof. And be it further resolved that the sum of $353,398 has previously been appropriated and made available to cover the cost of participation in the above phases of the project. And be it further resolved that the additional sum of $2,821,482 is hereby appropriated and made available to cover the cost of participation in the above phases of the project. And be it further resolved that in the event the full federal and non-federal share cost of the project exceeds the amount appropriated above, the Washington County Board of Supervisors shall convene as soon as possible to appropriate said excess amount immediately upon the notification by the New York State Department of Transportation thereof. And be it further resolved that the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Washington County be and is hereby authorized to execute all necessary agreements, certifications, or reimbursement requests for federal aid and or Marshall aid on behalf of the County of Washington with the New York State Department of Transportation in connection with the advancement or approval of the project and providing for the administration of the project and the municipality's first instant funding of project costs and permanent funding of the local share of federal aid and state aid eligible project costs and all project costs wherein appropriations therefore that are not so eligible. And be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be filed with the New York State Commissioner of Transportation by attaching it to any necessary agreement in connection with the project, and be it further resolved this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Okay. Thank you, Deb. We will now move on to the resolutions, please.
Resolution number 15 by Supervisors Clary, Hicks, Skelly, Ferguson, Wilson, titled to appoint and reappoint members, Office of the Aging Advisory Council.
Chairman, moving resolution number 15.
Supervisor Clary moves resolution 15. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Hankey, Supervisor Fiddler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Ferguson. Are there any other seconds? Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 16 by Supervisor Hall, title Supervisors appointed to the Soil and Water Conservation District Board.
I will move resolution number 16. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Rozelle. Is there any discussion? Yes, Supervisor Hatt.
Sam, this resolution and quite a few after this are sponsored by you or the vice chairman. Last year, when we did this, we had a little kerfluffle asking why don't these go through subcommittees? We know they come up every January. Seems like we're back here again where you are the sole sponsor or Bob Henke is the sole sponsor. Are there reasons why these do not go through subcommittee, or is it a last minute, oops, it's January, we got to do this?
No, it's been a standard practice that they have never gone through subcommittee. Doesn't mean that they can't, but it's had in the past and it seems to work this way, so we continued out with it. I certainly am not opposed to taking them through subcommittees.
You don't remember?
If that's the pleasure of the board.
You don't remember last year we had issues about appointing people, I think it was to the IDA board or something like that, where nothing came through subcommittee. This is kind of the same thing where I don't know if it was last minute or why could these not go through subcommittee? Probably the subcommittee would probably only take all of 30 seconds, but I'm just wondering why we are going around subcommittees like this.
Yeah, I don't think there's the intent to go around the subcommittee. Those have always been the way it's been done by the rules of the House. Supervisor Campbell.
Yeah, so I guess I compare this to our town level. We appoint people as supervisors at the town level. As a supervisor, I appoint my bookkeeper and, different subcommittees and things like that. And I think this is the same thing. I'm not sure, and maybe Roger can weigh in on this. I'm not sure if it's the powers that we give the chairman of the board, but I gotta believe it's his job to make sure those appointments are all filled. So I think that's why it comes this way, but never having been a chairman of the board, I guess I really couldn't tell you. But I would think it just makes good sense to me. That's how it would work.
Yeah, when the IDA is probably a good example. When you're a representative of the entire county, the chairman usually designates that person and the board ratifies it. So what you're doing is ratifying the chairman's appointment, in essence, to give that, to have the full weight of the board behind that person when they go and speak for the county at a
But I would think soil and water, intercounty, the other, I think they're all in that line, or am I?
Well, soil and water is a little different because that's a subsection of the county. It's kind of its own odd thing, but it's like the inter-county legislative committee Adirondacks and things like that are, yes, they're organizations that ask the county to send a representative, so the chairman designates that representative, and then traditionally we've had the board ratify those decisions. Do they have to? No. Yes.
So Roger,
Yes.
if an appointee serves at the pleasure of the chairman, why are we making motions and why are we voting on it? We should not. The chairman should make the appointment. End of story. Resolution 43, appointing Bob Henke to OTB, says serves at the pleasure of the board. These other ones, they don't have any indication serve at the pleasure of the chairman or serve at the pleasure of the board. I'm assuming these all serve at the pleasure of the board because I'm asking to vote yes or no.
Yeah, that's up to you. I think the chairman alluded to it when he said this is traditionally what the chairman in trying to build a consensus of, and have the board understand what's going on. These have been presented to the board. Do they have to be? If the board decides they don't want to vote on these things and give the chairman that authority, that's fine. The rules of the board don't mention these positions. They mention the committees and they mention the chairman's power in the committee, but they don't mention these positions.
Well, it's
up to you to make those rules.
I would think that on the resolution, just like number 43 says serves at the pleasure of the board, maybe that it could be a little bit more clarified, serves at the pleasure of the chairman. And then I would ask, okay, why am I asking to vote upon this? If there is an appointment that the chairman makes serves at the pleasure of the chairman, and he wants it to be ratified, I still think that should come through subcommittee.
I would
not-
suggest if that's what you want to do, then you amend the rules of the board to specifically state that chairman has the power to do that.
Well,
That'd be fine, then you don't have to vote.
Roger, if the chairman appoints somebody, that person serves at the pleasure of the chairman. We don't have to change the rules to say, oh, the chairman appoints that person, if that is how it is. I don't want to be changing.
Tomato, tomato, or tomato, tomatoing here, because it's an appointment to represent the county. If you want to give, and traditionally that's been done by the board at the recommendation of the chairman. If you want the chairman to do it without board input, I would suggest, the keyword there being suggest, that the rules of the board make that clear, that he has the authority to do that without the input of the board, and then your bases are covered, or make your own changes. I don't know if it's that.
That's my question, Roger. So if the board chair makes the appointment and say one of the board members feels that, hey, I have a better appointment and I would like to put that person up, the board chair is making the appointment. This is giving us an opportunity to address that. If we feel that person's not the appropriate person, we can have that conversation.
Right.
Am I understanding that correct?
It's kind of like advice and consent. If you want to analogize it to the federal system, the chairman's appointing that person, but it gives the board a chance to review that appointment and then say if they don't like it or if they have a better idea or something else.
That's my understanding. Thanks.
Supervisor O'Brien.
Sam, according to the WIVA, is that each county selects their representatives and submits their list to each other county for approval by the board. It actually says approval by the Board of Supervisors in the remember bylaws or the member agreement. So we normally respect what other county has submitted for it, and it's been a practice. Is one of the things that happens is if you have changes in supervisors or changes in members want to appoint, there's a continuity issue. The continuity issue is because the organizations have fiscal responsibilities that have to take care of, and the board has to do that. It has to be done as soon as possible during the first month of the year so we can continue that fiscal responsibility. Unfortunately, we have no committee meetings before this first meeting.
Thank you. Supervisor Hatt.
My comments are for any chairman of the board that we may have in the future, not just Sam Hall, any chairman of the board. I think it's dangerous if the chairman has an authority to do something, to then ask the Board of Supervisors to ratify that, because that dilutes his authority. And I don't think that's a good practice to do. At my town board meetings, when there's appointments made by the supervisor, I inform my town board. I do not ask for a motion, a second. I simply say, these serve at the pleasure of the supervisor, and I name the people. And I think if any of these resolutions actually, in fact, serve at the pleasure of the chairman, it should be a notification, not a resolution asking for a motion and a second and discussion, because I think that dilutes the authority of the chairman.
Thank you, Dana. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 17 by Supervisor Hall, title appoint members of the Intercounty Legislative Committee of the Adirondacks.
I will move resolution number 17. We have seconds, please. Supervisor Hanke, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Rozelle, and I think I have them all. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 18 by Supervisor Henke, title appoint Samuel J. Hall to the Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 18.
Moved by Supervisor Hanke. Do we have any seconds?
Second.
Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Fisher. Seeing no others, is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 19 by Supervisor Hall, title appoint sportsman representatives to the Fish and Wildlife Management Board.
I will move resolution number 19. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Half, Supervisor Rozelle. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Supervisor Half.
Assuming that this resolution serves at the pleasure of the board, I would like to be a co-sponsor of this resolution.
You got it, Supervisor Half. You got it. So we have you as a co-sponsor. That works. All right. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 20 by Supervisor Hall, title appoint supervisors to the Fish and Wildlife Management Board.
I will move resolution number 20. Seconds, please. Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Half, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain, please.
5 abstained. Carried.
Resolution number 21 by Supervisor Hall, title appoint landowner representative to the Fish and Wildlife Management Board.
I will move resolution number 21. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Griffith.
Yeah. So this is the last one, so I just wanted to understand this another way too, Roger. If doing these as appointments, can you do it as one resolution with a blanket number of appointments? Like, so at the town level, we make appointments for organization. If there's no question, can you do one resolution that has all the appointments outlined?
To all the different boards.
Right.
Yeah, you could do that, if you wanted to.
I'm just looking for a way to help Mr. Half to possibly simplify it a little bit more.
Fish and Wildlife folks could probably have been done in one, each one of those slots could have been done in one resolution as well.
Right.
So, why this works, but they're county representatives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nomination by the chairman, and this is traditionally now, it's not in the rules, and that's why I'm saying if you want to do it differently than voting on them at the board, then you should change the rules to say the chairman's just going to do it, because it's been a chairman nomination and a board ratification. So they are board appointments, but the chairman is the one that puts forward the name.
Right.
Traditionally.
But we could do a resolution for all appointments.
Oh, sure. You could say the following people are appointed to the following boards in the following capacities.
Boom.
And a list.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be done. I'm not gonna, you might have to argue Debbie about the record.
And there'd be 10 amendments if there was 10 people upset with somebody, so.
Supervisor Half?
Roger, you're an attorney and you use specific words, meaning specific things that maybe we don't quite understand. You've used the word ratify quite a bit. Is ratify different than approval?
Not in the sense I'm using it with you, no. It is,
Right.
there are board appointments to represent the county of Washington. The only people that can appoint folks to represent the county of Washington there is no chief executive in the county of Washington. So it's the entire board making the appointment to represent the people of the county of Washington. So but if you think of it, I'm trying to analogize it to the federal system, which is the chairman makes those appointments. So people approach the chairman and they say, I'd like to do this. I'd like my name to be put forward, and the chairman puts names forward. He does not have, as he does in the rules of the board, the absolute authority to say you, and you. Only the board has the authority to do that, and in some cases, there are different kinds of boards. So in some cases, like the Adirondack Park Local Government Review Board and the IDA, they have specific requirements in order to be sent there. Mr. O'Brien mentioned the fact that it has to be a board appointment for the IDA. The Local Government Review Board is a government organization that has specific rules to get to. The Fish and Wildlife Board may be that way. The Cornell Cooperative Board is another good example. They have their own rules, but they're not a government organization per se. So if you're going and you're saying, I'm speaking for the County of Washington, or I'm speaking for the board, you have to have a board appointment to do that. But the nominees are put forth traditionally by the chairman. And if he was unhappy with them, because he's the one dealing with more day-to-day operations, he would come to you and say, I'm unhappy with this nominee, and you would have to remove them. And they wouldn't have a term, and they would serve at the pleasure, already litigated this issue, serve at the pleasure of this board, but this board would have to remove them as well. But if you appoint them, the only way you get rid of them is you remove them.
Supervisor Haas, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, all right, thank you, Roger. So you've explained that all of these served at the pleasure of the board. So then I kind of just circle
Yeah.
back to, I would have liked to have seen these come through subcommittee prior. Because I think we have time. I can understand if it's January, a lot going on, you say, oh darn, every year we forget this. I have to put a sole sponsor name. I kind of understand that happens. But it seems like it happens every single January. And so, you know, maybe we could run these through a subcommittee prior if they're going to be serving at the pleasure of the board. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanky.
Well, that might be a little bit difficult since the appointments are in January and the chairman doesn't get elected until January 1st. Or whenever our introductory meeting is, you might well have another, inject a 2-month delay into this. It seems like kind of unnecessarily complex to try and bring it up as a sidebar in a committee. I don't know.
Once again, Robert Hankey is correct. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell?
I just take it one step further. We all just voted on chairman of the board, so at this point in time, every year, when you just voted on the chairman of the board, you kind of want the chairman of the board to step up and be involved right from the get-go. And like with Intercounty, our meeting's next week. I mean, there's no time to get to a committee. This is it. So I think all those things kind of play into it, but that's why you vote for a chairman and a vice chairman, is because those are the duties and responsibilities that they're supposed to be over and above. That's the whole idea, and that's the process, as Matt Hickson said.
Supervisor Shaw?
Yes, I understand where Dane is coming from, and he makes a good point, but on the same token, and this may be the question to Roger, if it was put in there, the wording was changed a little bit, and it just says the chairman of the board gets to nominate these positions that have to be approved by the full board, that would kind of resolve it. I mean, and I agree with what Mr. Campbell said, that it's time sensitive and we put a lot of trust in the chairman. He should bring the nomination forward. Just like you're doing, only you're saying you're appointing. If you're saying you're nominating and let the board do the approval, I think we've solved the problem. And if it gets voted down, then you have to come up with a different nomination at the next meeting. But normally the chairman knows the will of the board anyway, so it's more procedural. And I think the way it's going works good, but just simply change the word to nominate, and everything would then, fall into the right categories. Thank you.
None of this is codified in your rules. That's why I suggested, if you want your rules to reflect this and you want to see that written down somewhere, that's the place to write it down. That's why I suggested, and I did use that word very specifically, suggested, that if you wanted to make changes, that's the place to do that. And that's to clarify that policy.
Supervisor Hicks?
I'm fully in support of the way we do it now, the way we've been doing it. Just as long as my name isn't on any of those appointments, I'm good.
Yeah, I think we're coming out.
Make sure that's not good.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 22 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title to correct tax roll, Greenwich and Putnam.
Moving resolution number 22. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds, please?
Second.
Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 23 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the federal and state Marcia-Selly Program aid eligible cost of a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore.
Moving resolution number 23. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds, please? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 24 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title to amend capital project number 128, Marcia-Selly Grant Project, CR 35 and CR 36 pavement preservation.
Moving resolution number 24. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson, and Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 25 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, amend 2022 budget, historian for unspent Sandy Hill Foundation grant.
Moving resolution number 25. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 26 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, amend 2022 budget, County Clerk, to carry over unspent local government records management improvement fund grant.
Moving resolution number 26. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 27 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, amend 2022 Office for the Aging budget to carry over unmet needs funds.
Moving resolution number 27. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Hanky. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 28 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, amend 2022 Office for the Aging budget to carry over unspent Consolidated Appropriation Act funds.
Moving resolution number 28. Do we have a second? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 29 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title, amend 2022 DSS budget to carry over unspent Federal CARES Emergency Solutions Grant funds.
Moving resolution number 29. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Nolan. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 30 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, Authorized Chairman to sign coroner physician contract with Hudson Headwaters Health Network.
Moving resolution number 30, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 31 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, Authorized Chairman to sign agreement with Warren County for youth services for the years 2022 through 2024.
Moving resolution 31, moved by Supervisor Campbell. We have second. Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 32 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, to amend Board of Elections 2022 budget for early voting grant carryover funds.
Moving resolution number 32, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Nolan. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 33 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, authorizing and approving a settlement to an action relating to the opioid crisis.
Moving resolution number 33, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do you have seconds, please? Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Fedler, and Supervisor Hanky. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Hanky.
Just wanted to point out the absurdity of doing an environmental quality review or something like this.
Point well taken.
Nope,
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 34 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Titled, Set Public Hearing on Introductory Local Law B of 2022, a local law amending local law number 5 of 2020, providing for the amount of a reserve in the Washington County Workers' Compensation Self-Insurance Plan.
Moving resolution number 34, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 35 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, Ratify Agreement between Washington County and CSEA for years 2022 through 2025.
Moving resolution number 35, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hanky.
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler.
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Hicks.
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Mr. Half.
No.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Skelly.
Yes.
Mr. Hogan.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted, 4,507 yes, 183 no. Resolution number 36 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, titled to award bid for 2021 or newer mid-size vehicles.
Moving resolution number 36. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Campbell.
They're an electric. That really wasn't what I wanted to say, that was pretty young. Due to the situation and where we're at, it's very interesting, but I really want to thank Deb Donahue and Tammy and Gina for coming forward and making this all happen and work out, because it takes a lot of pressure off our carpool. And, you know, like I said before, it was like buy one, get 12 free. I mean, it's not local dollars that are buying a lot of these. And this is an impressive thing we're able to put together and do. And, you know, I think the committees that were involved back in late in the year when we actually put these out to bid, we realized that was of the essence, and getting these bids out so we get the cars back, because that's been a problem. And it's a bid that, you know, we weren't expecting to get as good a bid. Everything's gone up so much, and time has been, you know, getting anything. You try to buy a vehicle for yourself and stuff right now. So hopefully this all works out, but I just want to thank everyone who was involved, because this was a major undertaking that sometimes this board would say, why? But I think the realization of the board was great. I want to thank everyone for that.
Thank you, Supervisor Campbell. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 37 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, titled to adopt non-union grade schedule for 2022.
Moving resolution number 37, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Hanky. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call also, please.
Mr. Hanky?
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler?
yes,
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Haff?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted, 4,507 yes, 183 no. Resolution number 38 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, title set time and place for a public hearing on introductory local law A of 2022.
Moving resolution number 38, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 39 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith. Title, Establish Salary Schedule for Exempt, Stipend, Seasonal, and Per Diem Employees.
Moving resolution number 39, moved by Supervisor Campbell. We have seconds. Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Hanky. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Campbell. Yeah, so I want to thank everybody for the way this went finance, and, you know, we were fair to everyone here, except ourselves, I guess you'd say. And I don't wish to amend it, but I wish someone would for the supervisor's salaries, and I'm going to tell you why, because Wednesday morning I couldn't get there, and by Wednesday night I could. We removed the money for the supervisors, and so therefore there was no reason to think that the money could be put back. But for 7 years, we fought Hudson River, Black River, and I think I was the last man standing and pushing to make that go away to the tune of $143,766 year in and year out and no end in sight. And on January 10th, I actually sent one last text message to see if I could get it in the governor's budget. And I got a call on Wednesday night that our Assemblywoman, Carrie Warner, was ecstatic that she was able to secure a line in the budget, that money is right now currently. We know it's not final because the budget doesn't pass. That money now has its own line item. And that's what we need. We need supervisors that work that type of effort, that don't give up just because everybody forgot how it happened and how it got here. And I think by not paying them where they belong, we have very few people here making the effort, and it's not because they don't want to be here. It's because they can't always afford to be here. I've heard all about how this one can do this one can do that. When we talked about Zoom, we tried to buy computers for all the supervisors, and that was a no deal. We couldn't go there, so we can't have them on Zoom because we can't give them a computer. We can't have them in a meeting because we can't afford to pay them so they can afford to be here. It takes time out of their jobs. Some of them, it takes money out of their own pockets when they own their own business. And I just think that if we're going to come from the mindset that we're never going to take a raise because we are public servants, I question that because most of us have taken a raise every year, a regular raise, and I applaud what was done at budget time to do the magnitude of the raises we did across the board. And kudos to Melissa in her first year for putting together a program like this where everyone got treated the same. I was only treating the supervisors half of what everyone else is, and I think that was a sufficient number. I think 2,500 is where it belongs. I think that we took away close to 3,000 if you figured the average mileage along with the $1,230 back in 2008. And to think 20 years from now we're still not going to pay our board of supervisors $20,000 a year, I think is a ludicrous idea and only lead to diluting what we have able to serve here at the County Board of Supervisors. There's not one thing that I've ever put in a budget that I didn't do for the Washington County taxpayer. And this one was for the future of the Washington County taxpayer. And it still is. And I'm hoping someone will make a motion and second it to reinstate that, especially since we still have $101,266 left over if this does come to fruition. And it looks like it is, and I want to thank everybody that helped along the way, because we had meetings in Albany, Clifton, Parker, Half Moon, one of them. We've been all over the state trying to get this taken care of, and I want to really thank Terry Warner for moving that forward, and in hopes that it does make the final budget, because that's a huge burden off us, and that's an actual line in our budget. That's not taking sales tax or anything. That's just taking straight money from us. And so I'm going to leave it there, and if anybody wants to go anywhere with that, much obliged. See, Supervisor Griffith had his hand
Well,
up.
since I made the motion during the budget meetings, I'd like to make the motion to add the supervisor's increase, 2,500, Brian, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. As an amendment to this resolution, right, Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Well, it's three items, and it adds up to 42.5. We had a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler. Okay. So is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Dave.
So, look around this room, and we have a lot of people here that dedicate a lot of time to it. we also have to think about who is going to take our places. We need to make sure that we have compensation that will make people want to come on the board and serve on the board and give the same dedication. So I think we really need to consider doing this. I know there's some objections about us voting around full raises, but, we should be here and do dedication, but we need to give people the tools to be able to do it. Part of that tool is compensation, so they can make their own time, their own effort, get their own mileage, get their own expenses to come over here, because Zoom meetings aren't going to last forever. Going to be go back and forth. Cost of gas is going up. Cost of running a car is going up. So our costs are going up. So while there are people here that may not need the money, I think we have to think about the future of who's going to come in after us and what we need to do to encourage people to join the board and put the commitment in that we need for this county. So this is a benefit to the county by attracting more people and more qualified people to the job.
Supervisor Hogan.
What is the percentage increase that's being offered here?
About 12. Brian, what the percentage of that is roughly?
I haven't figured it.
2,500 on 20,000, 12%.
About 12.5%. Supervisor Hogan. Supervisor Hicks.
I stated my objections back during budget time. I still stand by them. I don't like when congressmen vote themselves raises, Assembly and Senate and Albany vote themselves raises, and I don't like us doing it here. Cost of living at 2%, I've supported that in the past, and I'm okay with that. But a flat number here or something like this, I'm not going to go into my soapbox stump speech about what I did back in September or October. You know how I feel, but I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Supervisor Fedler.
Brian, could you just, in case anybody who's on YouTube, could you just state what our salary rate is? We don't make 40,000, we make, and what is the exact number? It's for a supervisor.
19,616.
1960.
Just in case anybody in the public is watching, that we're nowhere near what a state representative or federal representative makes. We are in a very low amount.
I saw their hands. Supervisor Campbell.
So back to where Mr. Hicks went, and I appreciate what he brings, and I understand totally where he's at. But if you did the COLA from 2007 forward, I'm not even there at the 2,500. That's the point. That's where the problem lies. That's why it needs to be fixed. And when we do a 0% to do something of this magnitude, there'll never be a better time to fix this, which is the worst job we did.
Supervisor Hanke.
Yeah, I'm really kind of torn back and forth. Matt makes a pervasive argument, but actually, it's impossible to change the salary unless the board of supervisors votes on it one way or the other. And in 2008, we did not have any objection whatsoever to voting ourselves a loss of about $3,000, and more than that for some of the ones that live farther away because it took away the mileage at the same time. I just, I think it'd be nice to, before I leave, get it back up to the place it was in 2008 when I was first starting.
Treasurer Nolet, that's your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on the motion that's being presented, Chairman. If I understand the motion correctly, it's to amend the exempt salary schedule for the titles of Chairman, Vice Chairman, Budget Officer, and Supervisor to reinstate the $2,500 in each of those titles.
My mistake. 4 items.
I just want to make sure that I've got it right when if it was to succeed.
That's what the motion was? Yep. Okay, that's what the motion was.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. Supervisor Hatt.
I appreciate a raise like everyone else, but I appreciate a 2% raise, which I think everyone else should get, which is why I voted no on all the previous motions, where I think the county's giving away the store. We're not using our money, we're using public funds. And I don't think we should be so generous with public funds. $2 an hour on year one, and then all the other years, 2.5% equals 4% per year over 4 years. And I think 2,500 is just too much. I think if I could go back and go back in time, the budget would have had a 2% raise for everyone, not all these little carve outs and everything else.
Is there any people like I agree totally with you. That was my point. If we had done 2% instead of the zeros and the negatives, we would have been more than where we are. That is the bottom line. That is why I wanted to correct it now. You'll never have a better time to correct it than when you gave a 0% tax increase. You have money flowing that should never have quit flowing, and we had this one item I'm referring to is money that never should have been taken to us or taken from us, and finally it looks like it's coming back. This is a bigger moment than anyone realizes, and if hopefully they keep amount of our AIM money, because that's also in the budget, and there's a few other big items. The one that's tough to swallow is the one for bailing out the hospital, and that'll be future discussions, I'm sure, and who knows where that's going. But this is a big item, and you're right. If we did things more methodically and data-driven, we would be in a better place with less percentage increase. We'd end up at a higher end. It's the difference between being cheap and being frugal. That's where we're at. Okay. All right, if there's no further discussion, and we'll move this forward. This would be a roll call as the regular resolution was, the amendment would be, Deb.
Mr. Hanky?
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
No.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Half?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, see him.
Is he on? Mr. Wilson?
I think he lost his connection. He's still there, so he hasn't lost his connection. He might be froze, but that's what happens to me as well.
Mrs. Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
No.
The amendment is adopted, 2,544 yes, 2,099 no, and 47 absent.
Okay, now we go back to the first resolution, right? As amended. As amended, okay. So we had the motion on there, we had a second. Do we have any more discussion on the first one? As amended? No. Okay. Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. No, it's roll call. It's roll call again, I apologize. You might want to tell Mr. Wilson what we just amended, because he's clarificating now.
Sorry, guys. I know you're having a stellar conversation there, but I had to do a comfort break.
Okay, the amendment was passed. Deb, refer to him, just tell him what we had done, the amendment, so he'll know what we're voting on the.
I'm good. I'm good. I was following.
You all set, Harold?
Yeah, I did a
Okay.
sprint, so I wasn't gone that long.
Okay. All right, so we had the motion, we had a second. Was there any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Oh, roll call.
Aye.
All right. Yes. Roll call now. False alarm.
Mr. Hanky?
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
No.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Half?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
No.
The resolution is adopted, 2,591 yes, 2,099 no. Resolution number 40. Resolution number 40 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Kelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilson, Griffith, titled to authorize one-time compensation for Kathy Jo McIntyre for service during 2021.
Moving resolution number 40. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Clary. Is there any, Supervisor Ferguson? Is there any discussion?
I'd like to request a roll.
We've been requested to have a roll call, please. Is there any further discussion? Supervisor Half?
I'm all in favor of showing some form of appreciation or gratitude to the excellent work done, but I'm against giving of bonuses. And I know in the resolution, the word bonus is not used anywhere, but in the subcommittee, it was used all the time, and the motion out of subcommittee was for a bonus. That word was removed when this resolution was written. But I know the intent is that this is a bonus, and I wish we'd have some imagination to show our appreciation in a different way than money. This is not our money. This is taxpayers' money. Now, I understand she did a wonderful job, stepped up to the plate, but I'm against bonuses when it's part of your job to do these things. And, you know, wonderful employee, very grateful. I just have a problem with the bonus.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will go with the roll call.
Mr. Hanky?
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Half?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
He's on, I can't hear him.
Mr. Rozell?
He's shaking his head yes.
Okay. Resolution is adopted, 4,507 yes, 183 no. Resolution number 41 by Supervisors Hicks, Skelly, Campbell, O'Brien, Fedler, Clary, Wilson, titled to adopt staffing pattern for all Washington County departments.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 41.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks. Do we have seconds, please? Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Hanky. Is there any discussion? Oh, Supervisor Ferguson. He was a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 42 by Supervisor Hall, title Appoint Members to the Counties of Warren and Washington Industrial Development Agency and Civic Development Corporation.
I will move resolution number 42. Second, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson. Yes, sir. searching here. Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 43 by Supervisor Hall, titled to appoint Robert A. Hankey as Washington County Director to Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation.
I will move resolution number 43. Second. Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion?
Is there an alternate for this?
Good.
Voluntary, Jim?
Let's hit Supervisor Campbell, then we'll go to Supervisor Half.
I think if I was gonna gamble on anyone, it would be on Bob Hankey.
Thank you. Supervisor Half.
Bob, do you gamble? Do you go to OTB? Do you like the horses? Do you do sports book like James Griffith? Do you gamble?
None of the above.
Well, then wouldn't James Griffith be a better appointment for this because he is an active gambler?
He'd be more likely to be swayed.
I think the person that is an experienced gambler would be a better person for this position. And Bob, you just said.
You're really paying me a bad light, Dana.
Well, but you might be a winner. You might be a winner. You probably win.
I like to pick winners, you're right.
I would like to amend this to appoint James Griffith.
Before you do that, he's an experienced gambler, but he never said he was a good gambler.
I did bet on cemetery.
All right. We have an amendment here. Would anybody like to second that amendment? John, you discuss here, or do you want to second it?
Oh, James may be on the wrong side, Dana, when it comes to judging.
Well, sometimes bad experiences are the best teacher.
All right. Do we have a second to Dana's amendment? See none. I guess you move back to the original.
I lost Bob.
The original motion. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 44 by Supervisor Skelly, title, a resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program aid eligible cost of a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore, CR 61 Shushan over Bantonville, towns of Jackson and Salem.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 44.
Moved by Supervisor Skelly. Do we have a second? Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Nolan, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Hankey. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Half.
Have I used my quota already on discussion?
No. No.
Okay. This is the project where the county used eminent domain. Anywhere we use eminent domain, I'm a no matter what.
Just so you know, Mr. Half, the quotas on discussions don't apply to you.
Thank you. I support that nomination of the chairman that I'm not subject to quota. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we had the second, we just had our discussion. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'm a no.
Thank you. That will now move us down to supervisors' comments. And one of the things before we make other comments is I like to, well, go ahead, Darrell. You're probably going to lead into what I was going to discuss anyways.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I normally don't say a lot, and unfortunately, my comments are a bit sad. I just want to take a moment to remember someone we all know, John R. LaPointe, who passed Monday evening at the UVM Medical Center in Burlington. So unfortunately, he fell, injured himself, and then suffered some complications. And then around the weekend time, his body started failing him, and he ultimately passed Monday. But John is no stranger to the county. The towns of Putnam, Dresden, and Ticonderoga with over 50 years of public service. He served on the for the village of Ticonderoga as treasurer, the New York Chamber of Commerce for Ticonderoga. He served on a hospital board at Moses Lunnington in Ticonderoga, town justice of Dresden, supervisor of Putnam, as we all know, for over 30 years, and the board of supervisors. He was vice chair. He was also the budget officer and served on just about every committee that we have and currently do not have. He was on the board of directors for the New York Association of Counties, president of the Association of Towns, Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, Board of Governors for New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, and also served as their president. And he was also the Board of Governors for off-track betting. And his final job, he was currently serving as the town of Putnam budget officer. John's services will be Sunday at Wilcox Reagan in Ticonderoga. I will be there to remember him. He is survived by his wife, Jeanette, 6 children, 11 grandchildren. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Daryl.
He was my friend.
Thank you, Daryl. What I was going to bring up, and Daryl led right into it there, was the recognition for John. Sunday at the Wilcox and Regan Funeral Home from 2 to 6, they will be having services, or they'll be having the wake, the calling hours, and then a service will follow at the funeral home at 6 p.m. I guess my question would be, do we want to meet as a group to go up? Do we want to go up individually? Do we want to leave it up to individuals to, do we want to meet at a specific time up there as a group and get ourselves up there? What's the pleasure of the board? Do we have anybody that wants to make a comment as how they'd like to do it?
I'd say 1:30, we meet there, and so they all know that, you know, we're from this group before they have to figure out what the else is. We go through as one group if that's a possibility.
So for those that would like to go up and go through as a group, we could meet up there at 1:30 and then be there for 2. Does that work out with everyone? Okay. So again, it will be 1:30. We'll meet at the Wilcox and Regan Funeral Home in Ticonderoga. And if you cannot meet to go with us, you know, please understand it's not, you know, you can still go. If the time works better for you because of your commitments or whatever, and you want to go, don't let, because you can't go with us as a group, I'll stall you. Yes, Sir Brian.
Well, the one thing that I'll remember most with John was that he gave Dave O'Brien a nickname the Source.
Yes, he did. And it was accurate. It was accurate. James Griffith, Supervisor. I thought you had your hand up. I saw Supervisor Wilson. Do you have your hand up again, Daryl?
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. Guess I had to drink a little water, but he was my friend and a mentor. I've known him since 1979. Just so you all know, I am going later in the day to stay for the actual service. So I'll be from end of visitation into the service. So I may not see you up there if you go early. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. Supervisor O'Brien.
So John was quite a unique individual, but always remember our rise to Intercounty, James Lindsay and the John LaPointe show. The banner went on and on the whole time. It was worth going just to listen to him. And probably one of the best memories is that we're finding the way through there. And Jimmy Lindsay says, which way? LaPointe says, follow that truck. And the truck wasn't going the right direction to begin with, so we got off shoot. But we actually found the place because the road was closed where we were supposed to go. It was actually, it was very often that we got lost or sidetracked and somehow got in the right direction. And I think when I got my GPS out, they were a little discouraged because we were accurately going someplace instead of having all these side trips. It was quite a trip, and I know John was very well respected in NISAC, in NYMER, and other things, and I had an opportunity to talk to Steve Aquario, and he was very fondly remembering John and all the contributions he made to some organizations across the state. So I think we were unique and blessed to have him. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Do any other supervisors have any comments at this point in time? Supervisor Clary, and then we'll go to Supervisor Hanke.
I can remember my first day coming in here and was scared to death. John sat to my left, and John said, he's telling me welcome, and he goes, you just have to remember, he goes, I have the lakes and you have the farms. And through the years, I've often thought of that statement because it could mean a lot of different things. And it was just really fun to have had him sit to my left. So,
Supervisor Hanke.
I think Darrell might have missed that John was the town justice up in Putnam for a while too. And I think that kind of got me ready for when I met John here, because John was, as most of us know, was never wrong. And I'd been a police lieutenant here for maybe a year, and the conservation law is a horrible body of law. And it'll say in the, most things, like it'll say robbery, third degree, punishable by 6 months in jail and this sort of thing. Conservation law doesn't do that. It says, well, this is a misdemeanor, and it might not be. And then there's a whole other section of law you got to look up to tell you whether it's a misdemeanor or not, and another one after that to tell you what the fine is. So I said to my officers, I don't want the judges to get in trouble. It's on top of the court's copy, write down the section of law and what the fine is, because some of them had minimums and things. Well, I had been up here maybe 3 or 4 months, and I get a call from my officer up in Ticonderoga, and he said, you got to come up. The judge in Putnam wants to see me and my supervisor. Oh, crap. What have you done? I didn't know what he'd done. We get up there, and John's sitting there in his robe, and he's all pumped up, and he says, so you guys don't think we need a court, right? What do you mean? He says, well, you're bringing them in, and then you're telling me what I got to fine them. It's written right on here, you want this much money? I said, well, no, don't tell me any of that crap. He says, I run the court. He says, you catch him and bring him in, and I'll do what I want in court. I said, okay. He says, right here in front of you, it says, Frank no longer write anything on top of his court tickets. Well, about 3 months later, I get exactly the same call from Frank. You got to come up here. The judge in Putnam wants to see me and my supervisor. And it turns out John had got all jammed up with court administration for finding the wrong amounts. And he says, listen, from now on, on top of the court copy, you write down the section of law and how much the fine is. I said, yes, Your Honor.
Is there anything to come before us the rest of today? No to comments. Supervisor Campbell.
Well, I think I can point out that probably Resolution 44 after the first January board meeting might be a bit high compared to where we're usually at this point in the year. But I thank everyone for sticking with us. It was a long budget season, really drawn out with salaries. And I think we're in a better place where we belong. And I wholeheartedly think it's better for our actual taxpayers that we fix these things now than wait till later. When people head for the gates and we can't give the services that they expect from us, that's when we're in deep trouble. And hopefully, the plan that Melissa came up with is a plan that'll make sure that the services stay. And for we may not be able to hire the amount of people we need, but at least the people that are here and working with us know they were appreciated, and
they're gonna, and they may have to do extra, but it's just the way it is. We're not gonna get a chance at this again. This is a one-time deal. I think everyone realizes that. I think we're back to square one where, it was something that actually, Mr. Shaw brought to us years ago, let's do all those things at budget time, the promotions, the upgrades and whatever. We're kind of back to that now. I don't think we're gonna do things in the middle of the year. I think we're gonna do them in a timely manner the way we should. I mean, this one was packed full, but there were things that needed to be done. And I appreciate everybody's help and effort in getting there. And I just want you to know that, anything you want to talk about, discuss, you want in, out of the budget, or want to know what the number is, why it's there, what it's for, feel free. Look forward to a great year. Thank you, Brian. Is there, yes, Supervisor Hanky?
If you're done with your comments, I just wondered if we could end the meeting with a moment of silence for John.
We certainly can. That's where I was going to go next. So let's, before we actually adjourn, we're going to do a moment of silence for John, please. Thank you. And if there's nothing else to come before this board, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.